Welcome to the Circuit of Success Podcast.
The Circuit of Success Podcast.
With your host,
Brett Gilliland.
Brett Gilliland, Visionary Wealth Advisory.
The Circuit of Success Podcast. Let's start the show.
Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I'm your host, Brett Gilliland, and today I've got Fred Joyal with me. Fred, how you doing?
Brett, I'm doing really well. Really excited about this conversation and find out more about you and the bold moves you've made in your life.
Absolutely. Looking forward to chatting. And you are a best-selling author. I think I can see a book right there. Super Bold, From Underconfident to Charismatic in 90 Days. I like that. So best-selling author, international keynote speaker, getting ready to speak in Prague. It's a big deal. And business advisor. You co-founded the most successful dentist referral service in the country, 1-800-DENTIST, which is in aggregate generated over $1 billion in revenue while he was a CEO. And your latest book that we just talked about is a Wall Street Journal and Amazon bestseller. So congrats. And here's what I like. It says you're a below average tennis player, an avid cyclist, and an even worse golfer.
Yes.
Proud of it, huh? Well,
Yeah,
Fred, I always start every podcast with what has helped make you the man you are today.
The two very diametrically opposed parents that I had, a father that really longed for security and a little bit of money in the bank, and a mom who was always chasing a bigger dream and spending a little bit more than they were making. And I leaned towards my mom, but you know, my dad provided the base for it. He taught me how to work hard, treat all people the same, and he gave me a love of books very early in life, which has served me incredibly well.
That's great. Now, do you have a rule? Did you have to read all those back there?
No, I just buy books. I'm like everybody else. I buy them and read the first chapter and say, wow, this is really long. And then I put it in the bookshelf. And now I read somewhere between 30 and 50 books a year. Nice.
That's great. You have a rule. If it's in my office, or these books back here that you see on mine, is the rule is I have had to read it from cover to cover. Because I was the king. I don't know about you. In 2016, I think it was, I started 10 pages a day. And, you know, some days it's easy to read 10. Some days it's really hard to read 10. But that was the deal. I was the king of what you just said. Read, 2 chapters, and then it sits on your nightstand for a while, and then it goes into a drawer, and then you never see it again. But now it's cover to cover. So anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. But again, let's go back to the days when you were early on. You know, you just started maybe 1-800-DENTIST. What'd you do right before that?
I was a copywriter in a big ad agency in Los Angeles, and that was the first real job I had. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was aimless and unambitious for many years and just was a vagabond until the day I walked into an ad agency and I said, oh, these are my people. This is something I couldn't imagine doing anything as a career until that. And so I weaseled my way into the agency and learned how to write advertising. And everything in my life has flowed from that.
Wow. So what makes you then go into the dentist space? You just saw an opportunity, or what happened there?
You know, many times in life, things are utterly random. I knew nothing about dentistry, and I had never run a business before. But this gentleman that I knew, that I worked in his startup very briefly, because he was not anything like an entrepreneur. But he had a moment of brilliance, and he registered 2 or 3 800 numbers that spelled something. And one of them was 800-DENTIST. And he registered them with the numbers, and it came out, and they would ring to his house. You just direct them to his house. And he said, I think you could turn this into a business. And I said, well, I'm not going to do it with you because you don't work. So I'm not going to get saddled doing all the work. But I had another friend of mine who was a stockbroker who wanted to quit his job. And he said, let's do this. Like, you know, we were young and naive enough to think we could pull it off. And so it was just that random. It could have been 800 mattress or bologna or anything,
Yeah.
We're really glad it was dentist because that was the one that really the formula worked on it.
Yeah. So talk about it. So it's 1-800-DENTIST. I pick up the phone. I called that. What happened?
So you got to remember, we started in 1986. And so there was very little advertising for dentists, and it was actually considered unprofessional by a lot of dentists. But we ran radio ads, and then eventually transitioned to television ads. And we had a live call center where we would have the doctors. We started with just 20 doctors in Los Angeles, which was nowhere near enough for a city that size. But we got 50 phone calls the first day we started running radio ads. And it was a holy crap moment. Like this could actually work. And so we just kept adding more doctors and adding more media money and then adding more cities. And we figured out, every business solves a specific problem. And a lot of times you don't know the problem you're really solving when you start the business. The problem we figured out we were solving is people have as much apprehension about finding a dentist as they do about going. Because it's the great unknown to them. They don't know how to evaluate a good dentist. They could pull every chart in the doctor's office and not know if he's the best or the worst dentist in America. Yeah. And so we were like Google and Yelp combined before there were either of those. We had all this information on these dentists who are our members. And we had people that we had sent to them who were happy with them, eventually dozens and dozens and dozens of people that we had sent to them. So it had a really long run as a business model, and we eventually became national. And we spent $500 million in television advertising over the course of that time. We were the loudest voice telling people to go. We got more people to go to the dentist who weren't our clients than we did getting them to our clients. But it was still a great business. We were floating all the boats, but ours was a good boat to be on.
Yeah. I think it's amazing. We own, I own a wealth management firm. That's my day job. This is my fun hobby that's turned into a massive passion that I get to meet amazing people like yourself. But, owning a wealth management firm, we see people have made lots of money over their careers. And it's just amazing to me all the different ways you can make money in this country. And, so the people listening, it's like, think of this. Okay, 1-800-DENTIST. So I'm assuming then I pick up the phone as the normal person driving down the road. I saw your ad. I pick up the phone and my zip code is X. And then you probably then refer me to the doctor that's in that area or that zip code. And I'm assuming the doctor is paying money to you to be on your platform to get the business, right? And that's how it works?
Yeah, because the long-term value of a dental patient is pretty high. Yeah, it's why this business wouldn't work in a lot of other industries like the chiropractic. The cost of getting a chiropractic patient is probably $400 or $500 of advertising, and the chiropractor is going to make maybe $800 from that patient if she's lucky. Yeah. So it just doesn't work. The demand isn't there, but the lifetime value of a dental patient is tens of thousands of dollars. And that's not counting the patients that they refer to the practice if he or she is a great practitioner. And that became my sideline, is teaching them how to create a great patient experience, a remarkable patient experience, because that's what they needed. They needed people to remark about that practice because it all went online. Yeah. And so we were giving them the seed corn to grow their practice. So the individual patient we gave them, we estimate the long-term value was $50,000. So if they were paying us $200 or $300 for that patient, that was a deal. Now, did they understand that? No. Right. We spent all our time trying to get them to think like business people, because they're not. That's not, when people complain to me about selling, they say, oh, my product, man, it's hard. I'm like, I sold dentistry. Stop your whining. I sold dental appointments, and I sold it to dentists who work all day. They don't have time to be pitched to.
Yeah.
So it was, but when when it's hard to execute the business, that's your blue ocean. It's a huge barrier to entry. We made it look easy. People would come into the business all the time, try to imitate us. They'd be gone in 6 months because we just made it look easy. It was so not.
Yeah. So talk about that. I mean, what do you think made you guys make it look easy, but knowing how hard it is to be an entrepreneur, to start something, that blue water, right? The blue ocean. What did you do day in and day out that made it look easy?
We were on the air constantly with ads that didn't look expensive, because we found that the more creative and high produced the ads were and less clear and direct, the less well they worked. So we had very simple ads. I was the spokesperson for about 15 years. And it's basically saying, if you don't have a dentist, you need one. And we can help you find that one that's a good match for you. And that was the entirety of the message. We just found, 20 new ways to say it every year when we would shoot another round of commercials. And, and we created a business culture that was turned into the cornerstone of the business also inadvertently, because when people get on the phone looking for a dentist, they get an empathetic voice on the phone. And when you're apprehensive about your choice, which was almost everybody looking for a dentist, we soothed them. We created the first impression of the practice. So if you watch the commercials and you call 800 dentists, you go like, this is easy. I'll just get some dentists to pay me and I'll run ads that have 800 dental one. And of course, what happens is they run ads, and what phone number do people remember? Dental one or mine.
Right.
And they built, and we were like, come on. And my partner and I had an expression, come on in, the water's boiling.
It's not hot, it's boiling.
Yeah. And so it just looked like a really simple formula. And then also people would go, oh, there's got to be huge margins in that. No, there isn't. We were lucky to squeeze out 15% margins on the business.
Yeah. What was your passion to keep going? Because obviously days were really tough early on.
Early on, and we probably had 3 near-extinction events over the course of 28 years. That everything had happened.
Yeah.
We had 9/11 happen. We had the Great Recession. There were all of these things happening. But the 2 things that kept us going. One was we had borrowed money from our families, and we had signed personally on everything. Mm-hmm. So, the lease, the technology, equipment, everything was in our name. So if we went under, we went under, not the business. And so when you burn the boats in the harbor like that, even if it's out of necessity rather than intention, you figure it out. Yeah. And the other thing is we didn't have a lot of money. So we had to use our brains instead of our checking account to solve problems. Because if you've got a bucket load of cash, you throw money at the problem. And a lot of times you don't learn anything. But when you can't throw the money, you got to get to the root of the problem that you're trying to solve and solve it for good.
Yeah, that's so true. God, it's so true. It's funny. It's if any of my bankers are listening out there, please close your ears. But I always joked on the early days, they're like, oh, we need you to sign a personal guarantee. I'm like, at this point, I've signed so many different things. I don't care. I have to be able to do this, right? To your point of building something, man, it's stressful, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. I mean, the fun of building something is what I love doing the most, is building. And did you find that for yourself as well?
What was the most satisfying thing is my partner and I created a place where we wanted to go every day. It was a truly great place to work. We had lousy jobs and bad bosses, and we did not want to pass that on. And we had sold stuff where the customer loses for us to win. And we weren't going to do that either. And so those were our core values, the guiding principles of the business. Profit was always third. It was tertiary. And it never moved up, because that's what happens when a lot of times get really successful is profit becomes more important than culture and taking care of people. And now, we can squeeze the customers a little bit more. We can overcharge them. If we just learn to disguise some of this stuff. And that was never going to be us. Yeah. And so it was. That's why we loved it. It was a wonderful thing to get to do. We didn't want to be employees.
Yeah. Talk about that culture some more. So spend time on that. Like anything that you guys did inside the company that you think is even still this day is unique.
Yeah. Well, my proudest moment is when I finally stepped down as CEO. We did birthday and employee anniversaries every month. We would celebrate them. My last month, we celebrated 3 25-year employees in the same month. These people, and I mean, we'd only been running for 28 years. Yeah. These people had given me their entire adult lives, and they weren't stepping down. They were going to continue. And so that spoke to the culture as much as anything, because when you create a great place to work where you take care of people, where you know that they understand that you have their back even more than the clients, they will go to the wall for you, and they will defend the culture when you're not there. And that's what they did several times. There were some people that did some rebellious stuff, and we didn't have to do anything about it. They get called in by some VPs and said, "You're wrecking this place with this crap you're pulling. Stop it now." And they thought they were getting away with it. They didn't realize that their peers were going to call them out on it. Yeah. So it was things like that. But we took care of people. We had health insurance. In my mind, if you can't offer health care to your employees, you don't have a successful business. If that Starbucks spends more on healthcare than they do on beans, because especially people in their 20s and 30s, they're not going to get healthcare. Right. They're going to get a car. They're going to get a better apartment, and then something terrible is going to happen to them sometimes, and they're not going to be able to do anything about it. And so that was important to us. And, when we were always celebrating it, we had an internal newsletter with a team that ran it called the Culture Club. And it was, and we eventually had more elaborate core values that we created with the team. And we spent 2 days bringing all the people in and said, why is this place unique? And what do we never want to be doing? Those were the 2 questions we asked. And
I love that.
So it's like, what will you do for money and what won't you do for money? And this became the lexicon for the business. Like somebody would say, that sounds like it's profit trumping integrity. Versus integrity trumps profits was one of the core values that they came up with. And then the discussion was over. At that point, it was like, yeah, I guess we're sacrificing our integrity for a few more bucks. Or, are we embracing change? Are we learning and teaching? And all of these things, these were painted on the lobby wall in giant letters. And it created a vibe in the place. I mean, I really believe your culture is almost registers with people subconsciously when they walk into the place. Because people would do it. They'd walk into our lobby and they'd say, wow, you guys have a great culture. And I'd say, you're in the lobby.
Yeah.
In the
I haven't been in the hallways yet.
Yeah, but you like that elevator ride? It was pretty good, obviously. Yeah. But they can feel it. Because, I had employee, one of my favorite stories. An employee was telling me, he says, my girlfriend gets totally bummed out every Sunday because she's got to go to work on Monday. And I had so much trouble being empathetic because I couldn't wait to get to work on Monday.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't want to irritate her.
Yes. I love that because it's true, man. It's like, I was thinking we just had last Monday a retirement party. My executive assistant's retiring after 20, a little over 20 years together. And so, she's been with me literally since day one when I got into leadership. I mean, the day I got asked to run an office at my previous firm, she knocks on the door, we're together. And it's like, she was choking up. I was choking up when I was saying a few words to all the people that were there. And it's nice when you're not an asshole, you give people runway, right? You trust them, you respect them. You're humble with each other. I mean, it goes a long way throughout the whole culture, right? I'm just talking about Robin specifically on this one, but it's amazing that you want people to be able to retire and people be sad that they're leaving, not like, oh God, I can't wait until she gets the hell out of here, right? I mean, that's who we're trying to be around, and that's the culture that we want to build. And I think it's important, man. And everything you're saying is so true. The values on the wall, and I think it's just not values for values' sake, but you actually live them and you talk about them. Right?
Yeah. One of the things that we did is hired from within, because we had 2 floors. The upper floor was this call center, and all the training and everything was there, and as well as the live call center, and all of the other departments were on the floor below it. But if you went around the offices on the lower floor, there were stickers on a lot of the doors that said, I started in the call center. And some of them were VPs. And so
that's awesome.
Inspired the people in the call center. I was like, this isn't just like a clock punching opportunity to make some money till I find out what I want to do. I could stay here. I could work my way up to customer service or sales or even the accounting department. And we would just say, look, get educated, get smarter, get better, and come downstairs.
Yeah. Well, it showed them a vision, right? Showed them a vision and a path that it wasn't a dead end job, So you can see our sticker here on my microphone, and it's helping you achieve a future greater than your past. And it doesn't mean you had a bad past, but that's what you would see running through our culture. Like if you came in here and you asked somebody, what is the mission? What is the purpose of Visionary Wealth Advisors? They would say, helping people achieve a future greater than your past. Like I would bet a lot of money that we're in the 90% range of people that would know that. We talk about it all the time. It's in the culture, right? It's ingrained in us. So for you, what is that message that you're known for? But then number 2, when you hear helping you achieve a future greater than your past, what does that mean to you?
It means you are at core a growth-oriented person. Because there are many people who aren't. That getting better is not in the program. Getting by is their program, or getting comfortable is their program. And God bless them. I hope they're okay when they get to their deathbed. But we didn't surround ourselves with those people. And what happens when you have a great culture is you attract people that fit in the culture and repel the ones who don't.
Yes.
Which is really beneficial. People go like, why is everybody like this? Everybody's in a good mood all the time. Yep.
Yeah. What we do.
So go work at the motor vehicle registry, go
exactly.
With those, take your misery somewhere else. And so, I think we just inspired people to get better because it was more satisfying. They saw people around them getting better, and not just, and getting into relationships. I mean, we were like a dating site, our place. I mean, we were the number of couples and marriages and eventually kids. We actually were starting to have second generation employees in the place towards the end. But they wanted to be there, and that makes an enormous difference, because it projects out to the world. And and one of the things that we did, which was really important, and I don't know where I got it, but if a client dentist called up customer service and started cursing, chewing people out, yelling and screaming, they were off. They were done. And then, whereas other businesses are like, well, you got to save the client. You got to save the client. No, you don't. Yeah. And when you don't, that employee says, oh, Fred's got my back here. He's not going to, I don't have to take abuse. And I would say, give me the guy's number. I'll kick him off. And they're going, no, don't you call. We'll call.
We'll take care of this, boss.
I was going to scorch the guy. Yeah. And they would call up later, and because they were screwing themselves. The average dentist was doing 5 to 1 on the money they were paying us. They knew it. Anybody who was tracking it knew they were doing, an ROI of 5 to 1. So they'd call up and say, oh, I'm really sorry. I just lost my temper. Apology accepted. Can I get back on? Nope. Because we had the advantage. We had less than 5% of the dentists participating out of the 100,000 dental practices in the country. We had nothing but greenfield. We would replace some of these guys in an hour if they were assholes.
Yeah. And what's the old saying? We don't need your business. We value your business, right? I think that's from Boiler Room, the movie. We don't need your business. We value your business. And that's, I think you're in a position of strength there.
Yeah. Yeah.
We call it the no asshole rule.
Yeah. Absolutely. 80% of your problems come from 20% of your clients. And I tell dentists this all the time. I say, like, trim those patients off. That your team will reward you for that.
Yes.
Because you're saying, look, you don't have to experience other people's misery. We're going to be fine without it. And actually, you're going to make more money.
Yep.
I think anybody who's applied that principle of getting rid of trying to get rid of 20% of their worst clients, what happens is half of those people just start to fall in line because they realize they can't get away with it. And the other half you're happy to get rid of. Yeah. And you just end up making more money.
That's right.
But you make happier money.
Yeah. I mean, I get to the point, in the career where I love my clients and I don't ever want to have to see one of their numbers or, their name come across my phone. And I'm like, oh God, I got to talk to this guy. That's what makes work fun too. Is like, I get excited when my clients are on my calendar. I'm like, oh, I'm going to see so-and-so this week. That's awesome. So, but you got to be, I guess, confident maybe. And you also have to be just purposeful enough to be able to and willing to have the tough conversation, because, it's the same thing we talk about is like, I don't have to take on every client. If you can already feel that we're not going to connect, it's probably better to know that now versus taking them on and then being miserable and then trying to make an extra buck. To your point, I wrote down integrity trumps profit, and it's 100% in line with that. But I would say your integrity probably gets more profit. Integrity begets profit, right?
I mean, there's definitely people who are extremely wealthy being avaricious and screwing customers. I just don't want to be one of them.
Yeah.
There's, where maybe oil companies or something like that. And certainly the tobacco companies. I mean, imagine that's where you go to work every day, convincing young people to start smoking as early as possible. I mean,
and as often as possible.
Yeah. So, good luck with that.
Talk about that book I can see behind us, Super Bold, From Underconfident to Charismatic in 90 Days. It's a bold statement. What it says, super bold, so it has to be a super bold statement, not just a bold
super
statement.
bold statement. Exactly. Yeah. Well, what I figured out, because I grew up as an incredibly painful introvert. But it wasn't working for me, and I had to figure out a way out of it, as uncomfortable as it made me. And I did, and I just became bolder and bolder and bolder, and got rewarded for it steadily, and realized it wasn't a personality trait. It was a learnable skill that had just been socialized out of me before I was even conscious of that happening. Um, and it's important to understand, I'm not talking about being a show off or needing attention. I'm talking about being bold enough to not stop yourself from chasing what you want, whether it's a relationship or a promotion or starting a business or meeting that amazing person that you always wanted to meet and have a real conversation with, not just a selfie. And there will be times in your life where you'll have to step up, speak up, take a risk. Because if you don't, it will be a regret that will gnaw at you the rest of your life. So I started telling people, boldness is a superpower, because this is what I had developed for myself. And they said, yeah, that's great. How? And so that's what I figured out, and I put in the book. And the book has been very impactful for people, because I created a systematic way that people can gradually become bolder and bolder. And it works for them, and it makes a huge difference. And sometimes it works incredibly fast. I've had people just have shocking results. And other people, like, it takes them more than 90 days, but they see the progress. They feel the difference. They can taste what can be when they don't stop themselves, when they don't hesitate.
Give us a couple of examples. What are some, maybe one or two of the takeaways that you think people need to implement fast to be super bold?
I mean, the one of the easiest ways is to just talk to strangers. Talk to strangers every day. Because the trick to building your boldness muscle is to do bold things when the consequences are inconsequential. If you talk to a stranger in line at Starbucks and they don't want to talk to you, no harm, no foul, nothing matters or at that point, because you were just being polite. And the easiest way to talk to anybody is to simply offer a compliment. I call it a drive-by compliment, where you just go, hey, that suit looks amazing on you. Where'd you get it? Or, that tattoo clearly means something to you. What would it mean to me?
Yeah.
In my mind, I'm judging. It's like, why would you have a tattoo on your forehead? But
right.
They obviously had an intention.
And it's important, right?
Yeah. And so, and what I find is that if I have a judgment about somebody and then I start to talk to them, if it's a negative judgment, I'm almost always wrong. But this is human beings. We make snap judgments about everybody. Oh, that guy needs to lose weight, or she should never wear that kind of dress. And it's like, we dispense this stuff, but it's meaningless. And people are doing that about us. Do they know us? Should we care? We should not. One of the worst things you can do for yourself is worry about what everybody thinks. It's very hard to get anywhere in life.
Yeah. It's funny on the tattoo thing. I always ask, it's amazing what you learn about somebody too. This just happened last week. We're a group of us from work. We're at lunch together, and the lady, she had tattoos like all over the place. Right. And, I was like, what's your favorite tattoo? And I was like that question, because man, it's amazing what you can find out from people, isn't it? When you just ask them simple questions. So I think that's a big one too. I'm being super bold. And I didn't write the book. It's probably not part of the book, but I always say ADT, ask, don't tell. Ask questions. Ask people questions. Be bold enough to ask questions.
Don't try to be clever or funny or any of that. Be nice. Yeah. And then don't try to play tennis with the conversation. You don't have to be back and forth with people. And I talk a lot about communication mistakes that people make in conversation. So one of the key things is to have no agenda when you meet somebody. Just, maybe to make them feel better about themselves. If that were your only agenda, that would be huge. Instead of, maybe I'm going to turn them into a client, or maybe I'm going to date them or something like that.
Yeah.
The people who have no trouble dating women don't worry if the woman is actually interested or not, because they know odds are she's not. And odds are he or she may not be interested after a short time either. So they don't overweight it with this, I gotta find a mate, or I gotta find another house to list, or whatever the heck it is, because we can pick up their agenda in no time.
Yeah.
So lose it, give it up.
Yeah. Yep. Strong advice. What were the things you would say if I followed you around day in and day out that I would find are no miss items for you?
I see where people need a connection, and I can't resist making one at that point. I was just in having lunch in a grocery store with a friend of mine, and this is a funny story because as I was buying the food, this elderly woman was just buying a cup of coffee, and she was like, go ahead of me. I said, I only got like 4 things. You go. She says, no, you guys go, both of you. So we finally went, but I bought her coffee. And she laughs and she says, I do this all the time. Whether she did or not, it was just a funny thing to say. And then we sit and eat, and I see her sitting alone. So I just went over and just started talking to her. Now, the younger Fred, I couldn't talk to my elderly relatives because I don't know what to say. And I would categorize it as they're not interesting to me. The reality is everybody's interesting if you dig deep enough. Mm-hmm. If you're just curious enough. But I talked to her for 15 minutes about everything going on with her and why she was there. And we just had a great conversation. But I felt like that brightened her day, that I would do that. And that's kind of the way I want to move through the world with 2 things, an open heart, and that I belong wherever I am. Nobody decides I don't belong somewhere. And I really don't decide. I never tell myself I don't belong here. I know billionaires. And I've had normal conversations with them. I mean, people who have so many X'd my income over the years that anybody would say, I'm not worthy to talk to that guy. Guess what? They're all just people. Yeah. Their problems are just bigger most of the time.
Yep. Well, one of those is the humble brag I'm going to ask you to do is that you once beat Sir Richard Branson in chess.
Yeah.
How the heck did that happen?
Well, if people know enough about Richard, they know he owns a few islands down in the British Virgin Islands. And he rents one of them out, Necker Island, to business people. And sometimes he comes over from the other island and sometimes he doesn't. And I was on the island with a bunch of people. And the first day I'm playing tennis and I rupture my Achilles tendon. Oh. And I call a surgeon and he says, you might as well stay for the vacation. It's not going to heal itself. We'll fix it when you get home. So I'm sitting there with my leg up watching my friends play tennis. And Richard happened to be on the island and he's heard that I've injured myself. And so he comes over to me and he says, oh, this is such a bother that this has happened to you. Do you play chess? Now, I'm starting to think immediately, oh my God, I haven't played chess in 40 years. He's going to beat me in 5 moves. He's going to say, why'd you say you could play chess? But who I've become is the guy who says yes. So I said, yeah, I play chess. So he waves somebody to bring a chessboard over. We sit and we just talk because he's an incredibly interesting person. Let me actually qualify this. He's the business person I admire most in the world. Now imagine if you have that opportunity to meet the person you admire most in the world, in the business world or wherever. And I'm playing such a disorienting game because I'm just remembering how to play that I've left half my defenses down. And so he's coming at me all different ways. And he leaves himself open, and I see it, and I just go, oh, this is check. Actually, it's checkmate. And he looks down at the board and he says, oh, you, calls me the C word, and immediately sets the board up to play again. And then for the rest of the week would come find me to play chess. And then when we would sit at dinner, it would be like 25, 30 of us at dinner. He'd say, sit across from me, because he knew I wasn't going to interview him.
Yeah.
I was going to have continue our conversation. People were actually complaining. It's like you're monopolizing Branson. It's like, oh, I'm going to go tell him to sit somewhere else. That's what I should do.
Yeah,
for you.
right.
So but it was just like I had a split second to say yes or no.
Right.
And that's life too, man. Sometimes you don't
100%.
get to seize the day. Sometimes you got to seize the moment, because the window is going to shut like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just talked about this on a podcast last week. I said it's Matthew Kelly, my business coach at the time, was talking about, is the moment of decision, right? Master the moment of decision. Because to your point, you could say, oh, no, I haven't played in 40 years. And you just miss an amazing week of time with one of the greatest business people in our lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all I could have. And think of the regret that would have been, that I could have dragged that around with me. And that's what I don't want people to do. I don't want you stacking regrets, because eventually that's what happens is people live with them. There's like, oh, I'm just going to keep doing things that I'm going to have these regrets. It's like, I want you to get to the end of the line with no regrets, because that's what, at the end of your life, and this is what happens when they interview people in the last days of their life, they don't regret anything they did that didn't go well, they failed at. They only regret the things they didn't do, the things they didn't say, the things they didn't try.
Yep.
That's what gnaws at them. And I don't want that to happen to people. I want them to, seize the moments and end their life saying, that was a good run. And I had a few regrets at the beginning, but, all in all, I said yes and took big risks and met amazing people, and broken and battered. And, the last check I wrote bounced, but hey, it's been a good run.
We've had a good time. So in closing here, also, how in the heck does one turn into a question on Jeopardy?
That just happened because I was in the 800 Dentist commercials, and they, for 15 years. And like I said, we ran millions and millions of dollars. So one of the categories was 800 numbers at one point. And the question was, Fred Joyal shines his pearly whites in this 800 number commercial. That was
what is totally 1-800-DENTIST?
Totally, yeah. So I wasn't actually, I was a Jeopardy answer technically, but I don't like to confuse people, because everybody goes, well, it's an answer, not a question.
Yeah, you get the point. I was in Jeopardy and you weren't.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny.
I got a screenshot of it, took a picture of it because I didn't even know. A friend texted me and said, dude, you're on Jeopardy. I was like, I am. And he's like, no, we gotta see this. So he had recorded.
What an awesome surprise that was.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So where do our listeners find more of Fred Joyal?
Best place is my name, fredjoyal.com, Joyal, no dots or dashes or any of that nonsense. And I'm Fred Joyal everything on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. And I love speaking to companies and upping their boldness and the individual team members, and have a newsletter that comes out every week and just talks about something I picked up along the way about life.
Awesome. I love it. Well, we will send everybody to your website, fredjoyal.com. and they'll connect on social media as well. But Fred, thanks so much for being with me on the Circuit of Success.
Sure. And just quickly, the book is on Amazon in Kindle, hardcover, and Audible. So
awesome.
Brett, thank you so much. This has been
We'll
great.
put it on there. Stay with me here, and we'll talk again. Thanks so much for being with us.